So I'm Beth. I grew up in Southern California in Orange County, and I came to OBU in 2008. Um, and I was a psychology major. I wasn't pre-counseling. I was just plain old psychology because I thought I wanted to do more PhD stuff, research stuff. Um, I did want to be a therapist, but I thought I wanted maybe to do that later in life, after more of a research background, I guess. Um, and so I was a psychology major all throughout, but I realized pretty quickly that I wanted to do therapy more than I wanted to do research. Um, so in between, when I graduated in 2012, I knew that the MFT program was getting ready to open back up the next year. So I decided to wait for that to open and not go to grad school right away. And then my husband and I got married right after I graduated. And I started working. I worked at a place called Kojak in Tecumseh. I worked there for a year. It's kid jail. And so that was an interesting experience for sure. I got to meet a lot of really interesting kids who had done really bad things in their life. And so I started working there as sort of just like a babysitter. I don't even remember what our role was, what it was called. Youth guidance specialist or something like that. And so we were just sort of the crowd control babysitter. You just had to have a GED to do that job. It wasn't anything counseling or social work related at all. And then so I did that for 6 months, and then I got promoted to a juvenile justice specialist. And so that was more of a social worker role. And so I wrote letters to the court about whether the kids were ready to be released or if they needed to stay longer. So that was a really interesting job. And I loved some of the kids and I didn't love some of the other kids. But it was a good experience for sure. So I started the graduate program in 2013 and did the 2-year track and graduated in 2015 and started seeing clients here at Bison Family Therapy immediately following. And so I've been here ever since, and I got licensed in almost exactly 3 years ago. So it'll be 3 years next week. And so just been doing the private practice thing.
Very cool. Your bio mentioned you did private practice all throughout your practicum. Were you Bison or another location?
I was at the Center for Christian Counseling and Care. I don't know if Larry Roberts still teaches some classes, but it's his practice. So I did mine there with him.
Nice. I'm in Larry's class right now. So
what did you say?
I'm currently in Larry's class.
Yeah, he's great.
Mm-hmm. So anything else you want to tell us, like as your journey as a LMFT or your experience particular once you got into private practice?
Yeah. So something that probably shaped a lot of why I wanted to be a therapist and why I feel called to this is a lot of just my personality and watching my family growing up. I think that a lot of people go into counseling because they had like an unhealthy family situation that they want to help people through. And mine was sort of the opposite. I had a really healthy family situation. My parents had a really good marriage. And so I think that watching that and watching how much love they had with each other and that they went through hard times, but the way that they sort of worked through that, I got to watch firsthand, and I was always really fascinated with their relationship and how they made it work. And so I think it made me become really passionate about families because I loved my family so much. And like, we definitely obviously weren't perfect. Like, I struggled with a lot of mental health things in high school. And my parents weren't always great about that. They had a hard time. And those of you that were in that psychopathology class, like, heard a little bit of my story there. And so it wasn't always perfect, but I could see like all of the different sides of it. And I was really passionate about relationships and family even back then. And so, especially when deciding after graduating with a psychology degree, deciding, do I want to go into a program to get an LPC or an LMFT, it was always a no-brainer. For me, LMFT was always the road I wanted to go. And that's just very my growing up experience, my personality, just what I believe about life and people. And so I'm still very passionate about LMFT.
Awesome. So are we. I'm sure I can speak for everyone. We love it. Very cool. Yeah, so let's dive into private practice specifically.
Okay.
What do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so I was thinking about that, thinking about why did I want to do this? Why private practice versus like an inpatient facility or an agency or whatever. And I think that the number one reason I wanted to do private practice is because I couldn't really think of any other setting where couples counseling could be a primary focus, you know? So other places obviously do couples, but private practice is where you're going to get so much more of that. That's where couples are going to turn, is to a private practice. And that's the thing that I wanted to do forever. That's the thing I wanted, that I was the most interested in. That's the thing I'm still the most interested in. I love couples. So as obviously when I started, I realized quick, it wasn't just couples, and the variety of clients that I get to see people from ages 3 to 90 if I wanted. And I get to see so many different types of issues people are dealing with, so many different walks of life that people are in. And so that's what I've come to love so much about private practice, is the variety. I remember finishing up practicum, some of my friends were talking about how they were so anxious to see a couple or so anxious to see a kid because that is something that they hadn't had to do yet. And I just remember feeling so lucky that I had gotten to see the widest range of people. And sometimes it wasn't the like hardest issues. Like, I remember thinking other people who were in like the Integra Spencer STAR program or whatever, I remember thinking that would be so hard to hear the same thing, the same problems all day. But then thinking it would be so hard to go from one issue to the next issue all the time. And so I think that fits my personality a little bit more, having the variety. And like, I can see someone with anxiety 1 minute and then the next hour is something totally different. And I really like that. It helps the day go fast, I think, and keeps me on my toes for sure. And I like it a lot.
Yeah. Do you think that helps with kind of like burnout by having a constant variety?
Yeah, probably. I think so. I hadn't really thought of it like that. But definitely, I think that I look forward to certain issues that I know I'm going to be talking about or thinking about. And so I definitely, some things I obviously don't look forward to as much because it's hard and it weighs on you. But then I have those other clients who I get to see a lot of hope in and a lot of growth in. And so I think that always helps after having some of the harder stuff that doesn't feel as hopeful.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you so much. Anything else you want to tell us, students, about, like, if we want to go down that road, what are some things we need to start considering, or what are the things you wish you had known?
Yeah. Some things to start considering is what place are you in financially? How long can you how long are you willing to wait to build up something like a good financial stability or whatever? So if you go straight to an agency, you'll get a paycheck that is the same every month, or it's stable. It might not be a lot, but it's stable. Whereas private practice might start a little bit slower, and it will grow into stable, but it might be scary at first. You have a lot of upfront costs, and it takes a long time. You only get paid for the hours that someone's in your office. And so that can be a slow start for sure. But I think that's the biggest hurdle to get over is, can I do this? Can I be in a place financially to be able to have 6 months or a year of being poor, and then it builds, and then it feels really stable after that. Something else I was thinking of, but it's going out of my head.
It's okay.
Really good benefits of it are the flexibility. If you're looking for something flexible, private practice is for you, because there's so much more flexibility in it. I never have to tell anyone. Well, I tell my clients, but I don't have to request time off. I don't have to ask permission. My family lives in California, and so I love to go visit them, and I love not having to ask permission to do that. And so that's a really huge plus.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I was going to tell you at the beginning, and then I forgot. I grew up in Orange County for 7 years, so nice place to visit.
Yeah, where?
Irvine.
Cool. I grew up in Santa Ana.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. I mean, I have a bunch of questions that we've pre-prepared, but I don't want to skip to that unless you had more you wanted to present.
No, go for it.
Okay, cool. So one, kind of that business side, how do you balance your budget and figure out the financial stuff?
Yeah. So in the practice that I'm in, Dr. Crane is the owner of this practice, and so he had established this before I got here. And so he's done all of that, Something that is important, though, is knowing how much money you need to make in order to keep this alive. So there's rent, having an online medical, what do they call those? Where you write your notes, like Theranos or whatever. Having
platform.
one, yes, yeah. So having you're going to have to pay for that. You're going to have to pay rent. You're going to have to pay insurance. All of these things are upfront costs. And so you need to know how much money you need to make in order to keep it alive. And then you can sort of set your rates off of that sometimes, of knowing how much do I need to be charging in order to make that much money? How much is insurance going to pay? So if you're a candidate, that's tougher because insurance isn't going to pay, and except for Sooner Care, they pay candidates still. But weighing sort of the costs of how many clients do I need to see a week in order to keep this alive? How many clients? What do I need to do if there's no shows? Do I need to be charging people for that still? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's a broad question that could be answered many different ways. Carlos, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
Yes. So how much can you make annually, and how much money do you need to survive?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Not personally. Sorry, I don't
Sure.
want to make this personal, but
Okay.
in general, the
Yeah.
income range in the field.
Yeah, I think it really depends if you are just in the practice or if you own the practice. So a lot of times when you're in a practice, they'll take a percentage of what you make. So like 30% or something like that. And whatever you make, 30% gets taken out of that. And so I have heard if you charged $80 a session, and insurance will pay around 80 or 90 with a copay. So if you charged 80 a session and you saw 20 clients per week at $80, I don't have a calculator on me, so someone else could do it. But I think I did the math one time. $80 a week, 20 clients, or $80 a client, 20 clients a week for 50 weeks. I think that's $100,000. So take 30% out of that, and that's 70,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's pretty good money.
Yeah. And you said the insurance is going to cover 90% of the $80?
So yeah, so insurance will, so there's usually a $30 copay that your client would pay, and then the insurance will reimburse you whatever you charge. So if you charge $90, then they will reimburse you 60 and your client would pay 30. Some insurances do it different. Those. So right now, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, just recently started letting MFTs be a part of their network. So before I would charge, if I charged $80, then the way that I would do it is I would bill it out of network. So the client would pay me $80, and then Blue Cross and Blue Shield would send them a check for $50. So it reimburses them up to the $30 copay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
You said that Sooner Care pays candidates.
Yeah.
But insurance companies, you have to be licensed. And so what about private pay?
Yeah. So private pay, it is kind of whatever you want. And that is something that has been a journey for sure. So when I started here at Bison, I was just a candidate. And I started out charging $40 a session, which is so low,
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that for the first year and a half. And so before I was licensed, even I raised the rate to 60. And it was really, people were very willing to pay that. And then I just recently, I didn't raise them after I got licensed. I got scared that people wouldn't want to pay and not come to me. And so it took a while, but I raised them to 80, and it's been successful. I noticed other private practices. I have a friend in Stillwater, and she charges 90. And then the practice in Yukon that I was talking about earlier, it's 85. for private pay. And so I think it depends on the area. Shawnee might be harder to charge a lot, but it's been successful so far.
So what I'm hearing you say then is you can see clients as a candidate private pay. Just
Oh yeah,
okay.
definitely.
Okay.
That's where most of your clients will either be private pay or Sooner Care
Sooner Care.
when you're
Okay.
a candidate. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Does anyone else have any more questions? I have a whole list that I can pull from, but I wondered if Rhonda or Mara or Carlos had any more questions.
Not at this time.
Okay. So what about like diagnosing an insurance? I know that that's difficult potentially in any type of MFT job, but any particular challenges with private practice?
Yeah. So it is hard because I don't think I never would have thought of that as a client, that there had to be a diagnosis to bill insurance. And so especially with couples, that is really tricky because they want to use their insurance, of course, but there a lot of times isn't a diagnosis in a couple's situation. And so people are pretty, when you talk to them about insurance and diagnosis and stuff, people, like, I think are on a lot of the same page that we probably are all on, of sometimes it's worth it to pay the private pay rate so that there doesn't have to be a diagnosis made. And it does get tricky for sure. And some people are like, I'll tell you all the problems that I have so that you can think of a diagnosis or whatever. But it's tricky. But everyone, so far, it hasn't interfered in what I do.
Okay, thank you. And if any of you guys think of questions as I go through my list, don't hesitate to just cut me off, interrupt, raise your hand, whatever. So just in general, and maybe you've addressed some already, but what are some of the advantages to private practice and then some of the specific challenges?
Yeah. I'll start with some of the challenges. We'll do the negative one first and we'll go to the positive stuff. The challenges are, you have to be very independent to be successful in private practice. A lot of there isn't the morning you get to work and everyone drinks their coffee together and talks about the day. And there isn't a staff meeting where you talk about your hard cases. It can get lonely because it is very independent. Here at Bison, I have always been really, really independent, and a lot of times I'm just here by myself. And it has its benefits and drawbacks for sure. And one of the drawbacks being just that it can get lonely, and feeling, especially after you're done with supervision and not having that weekly sit down of this was hard, or this is what I'm struggling with. And so that for me probably is the hardest part of it, is just the not having coworkers to hang out with every day, and the other hard part is only getting paid for when somebody's in your office. No-shows are huge. I got no-showed 100% of my day yesterday was either a no-show or a cancel. So I didn't see any clients yesterday. And so that's the hard part of it. It's something that sometimes I feel really relieved because I'm overwhelmed or really tired or whatever. And sometimes I am sad. And so that's a very real part of private practice, is knowing I'm not going to get paid for this day. And also vacations and stuff like that. It's so good to not ask permission to go on vacation, but I'm not going to get paid for those days. So those are the definite negatives. The positives are, if you are an independent person, it is so wonderful to get to sort of do your own thing and not have to ask permission for all of these things. I have the cohort that I graduated with, there's 10 of us. We still have a group text that we text each other all the time. And some of the stories that I hear about some of the things that go on in agencies where people are making decisions for them, for the therapist. And I just think, oh, I'm so thankful that I get to make those decisions for myself. That I don't have to staff. I like to do that, and I definitely do. Still call Dr. Crane if I'm stuck on something, but I can really build my own confidence there in knowing that I can do this, and I don't need to ask a question every time I get nervous or stuck or something. So I think that is a huge thing that's really helped me grow, not only as a therapist, but just as a person, is the confidence that I've had to build through doing this has been huge. And I love that part of it. I love feeling like I have no one else to rely on but myself, and I can do this. And so I have really loved that independent part of it.
Mm-hmm. And that's something to be proud of too, that you're building this on your own. That's exciting.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that isolation? And maybe sometimes maybe it's not that bad, but when you do feel isolated, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I have a really good support system outside of this. I have a really good support system of people who aren't therapists. And I think that's really important for me, at least. I think it's really important to have people that don't know the right questions to ask all the time, because sometimes I want to not talk about it, and I want to just talk about if we like donuts or bagels better, and I think having a support system sort of outside of the hard, outside of knowing what kinds of things I'm listening to all day is good. It's a good distraction. And my two best friends are they're super empathetic, and they're super good at asking those questions anyways. And so they definitely know how to be there for me and know when I do need to talk about feeling lonely or feeling isolated or whatever. And so I think just having a really good support system outside of therapy is key. Like, I don't think I could have done this without my husband. I don't think I could have done it without my best friends. And my cohort, I love talking to them. And so I have a support system of people who aren't therapists, and then I have a support system of people who are. And yeah.
That's really cool. I didn't think about relying on your non-therapy support systems. That's a really neat idea. So how do you keep in contact, other than your cohort chat, how do you keep in contact professionally and kind of keep I guess, a group of colleagues in your life without actually having.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, especially in Shawnee, it is small town enough for sure, that I go to church with like 3 other therapists. And so that has been really cool. I get to talk about different things with them when I see them just around town. But I think going to conferences is huge. We Unfortunately, this has been an off year of conferences, and I'm really sad. Not that I love conferences that much, but I love hanging out with my friends, and that's really the only reason to go. Other than the CEUs, you need that too. But it's like a reunion every time, and I think that is really fun. Built-in reunions a couple of times a year. And so definitely go to the conferences, get to know people, and you'll see the same people every time, even when you don't know them that well. You'll see the same people, and it's just really fun. And you get to know, you hear the names of like the famous therapists. They're not really famous, but in our world they are. And so you see them, and it's fun. It's really fun.
That is fun. So you mentioned you feel like you can call Dr. Crane. Obviously, he's connected to Bison. Is there anyone else that you kind of lean on or reach out to if you feel like you have kind of a supervision moment, even though you're much beyond supervision?
Yeah, I do have a coworker, Kelsey Gray. She does virtual. She's done virtual mostly since the pandemic, so I don't get to see her in person. But like, I definitely feel, and even though she's just a candidate, I think that's something that's really important too. Even though I'm licensed and she's a candidate, she still can help me for sure, and I'm not scared to ask her. And even the students that see clients here, like, I would always feel comfortable bouncing something off of them if I needed to, or just saying, that was a really hard session or whatever. I think you have to let yourself be able to do that. I think as therapists, and this is something I've definitely struggled with, and I'm guessing probably all of you could say that you struggle with it too, or have struggled with it, is being willing to be vulnerable. Because I always joke that I did this job so that I wouldn't have to think about my own stuff. I just think about everybody else's. And so letting yourself have flaws, letting yourself be scared, letting yourself ask for help is really, really important. And it doesn't have to be someone with a PhD. It can be someone who's still a graduate student. And like, any therapist is gonna understand what you're going through. And so let yourself ask.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great reminder for us. So you were able to find space at Bison Family Institute, but what advice would you give to us students in like finding a space to practice in?
Yeah. I think having a good network of people is really important. Obviously, I knew Dr. Crane pretty well, and so that helped. And starting at a new practice, I wouldn't have ever known about that without having a network of therapists that talk about things and mention job openings and stuff like that. And so I think networking is really big for finding a place that you want to be. I think just asking sometimes, if you know of a practice and you have heard good things about it and you're interested in being there, send them a resume. You never know. And I think a lot of practices, if they don't do a percentage, they'll do rent. And so they might have, I've heard of people who do, I don't know what it's called, but they rent for 2 days a week, and then another therapist rents the other 3 days a week. And so there's probably space available somewhere, and not being scared to just ask is good.
Yeah, it seems like with private practice, we have to kind of create our own opportunities. Would you say that's true?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Rarely have I ever seen a job posting for a private practice, and not that there isn't. I think that there are probably some, but I think a lot of it is going to be word of mouth. A lot of it is going to be just asking if there's space available. And so, yeah.
Very cool. What advice would you have for us students in being a business person? I know you went over finances a little, but what about marketing yourself?
So that's a toughie, because I know for me, and I'm guessing the same for you guys, I definitely did not become a therapist to become a business person. That never ever was something I was interested in doing. And I know so many therapists in private practice that are really good business people, and I'm not sure how they did that. If it's just their personality or what, I feel like that is not me. And so that's a really hard piece of it. But I think you can find some marketing things that are easy. Psychology Today, if you guys have ever heard of that, that is so easy. It is, and it's a monthly subscription, I guess. And that is probably, I don't know if this is true, but I think that is probably the best or most used platform that people search. So when you type in therapist in Shawnee, Psychology Today is probably going to be the first thing that pops up. And it is a personal ad. So it's not a Bison Family Therapy ad. It is a Beth Richards ad. And they can read all about you. They can see how much you cost, what insurance you take, and they can click a button on there that says email. And then it just sends you an email. Or there's phone number on there they can call. And so that has been the best way that I've known how to advertise for myself personally. And I would highly recommend that. When you sign up, you get the first 6 months free for that. And so it's a really good way, especially right after you graduate and you haven't started making money yet. It's free for 6 months. And then it's $30 a month after that. And if you see one client, it pays for it. And so, if you see one client and you charge more than $30, then you've already paid for that ad for the whole month. So I think it's definitely worth it. The other ways that we do advertising as a practice is Google Words. I think that's what it's called. And so that's something that Dr. Crane pays for, or the business pays for. And a lot of times that percentage is paying for the advertising. So depending on where you're at, sometimes if you're in a place where you're just paying a monthly rent, it would be different. They may not be advertising for you. So that's something to think about. But percentages, places that take a percentage, a lot of times they're paying for the ads, they're paying for business cards, they're paying for a lot of the marketing things.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
You mentioned your coworker is doing a lot of teletherapy. I wondered if you had gotten into that at all and what it might be like fusing teletherapy and private practice.
Yeah, I have done it a lot over the past couple of months. I think Kelsey is way better at it than I am. She has to be, because I don't feel like I'm very good at it. I really love the in-person stuff. I use a lot of body language and moving people around in my office, and so that has been really hard for me with the telehealth stuff and feeling like I don't have as much control. I think Kelsey has been super successful seeing couples that way, and I feel with high conflict couples especially, I feel like I can't move them around, and so it's been really hard. But I have really enjoyed it. Some people I've only done teletherapy with, like I haven't met them in person, and I think for that, honestly, that has been more successful because that's how we've gotten to know each other. And so I don't hate it. I don't love it. I would rather be in person, but it's been a huge blessing for sure to have that in this weird time of life that we're in.
Yeah.
And it's been really helpful too. I started doing teletherapy in January of last year before the pandemic started because I spent a week in California with my grandma. And so I was able to see all of my clients still while I was there. So that was really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. I feel like we have so much to learn about teletherapy, but it's been such a unique tool, like you said, during the pandemic. So I'm wondering if Carlos has, or Mara, do you guys have any more questions for Beth? No? We're good? Okay, so that was all of my questions. Beth, I wondered if you could end with maybe a story. I love a good story. Maybe just one of the most unique or interesting or profound private practice experiences that you've had.
Yeah, I have some really, really good stories. And so I'll be as discreet as I can. But I have a really good one. I don't know if it's a good one, actually. You guys might be like, oh no, we're never doing this. So when I first started doing private practice, billing Sooner Care, the agency, this is something that's really important to know. I forgot to mention this, so I'll give you a quick thing about it. Sooner Care is really hard to bill. They have a lot of loops to jump through, or hoops, I guess. And so it is hard. So what we've done is when I first started working here, I worked for another agency called Quest. And they wrote the treatment plan for me. They did all of the billing. All I had to do was write the note. So it was like I was working for Bison Family Therapy with everyone who was private pay, and I was working for Quest if you had Sooner Care. I've changed agencies, so I don't work for Quest anymore, but I work for an agency called LFS. And it's the same thing. I write my own treatment plan now, but they do all of the billing stuff for me. If we have to collaborate with another agency, they do all of that for me. So that has been really, really helpful, having someone who knows Sooner Care that can do all of the billing stuff. So with Quest, when I first started, a lot of what they did was like in-home therapy. So going to people's houses and doing therapy at their house. And I had a client who, in the nicest way possible, her house was not clean. I had to take a shower after every session. It was rough. but I loved her so much. And doing therapy in people's houses sounds scary, but you get to know them in a way that you'll never get to know your clients who come to your office. So one time I was at her house, and I had shingles. I didn't know that I had shingles at the time. I knew that something was wrong with me, but I didn't know what was wrong. And I had a doctor's appointment for that afternoon, but I thought, I'm good enough. I'll go. I'll do the session and it'll be fine. So I go to her house, and she didn't have like heating or air conditioning or anything like that. And it was summertime. So it was blazing hot inside of her house. She had animals that she kept in the house, not normal, like not dogs and cats, but other ones. So it was not good smelling. And it got really hot. I started getting really hot. I was sweating profusely, and I thought, I'm about to throw up, I think. And so like I stopped the session and I was like, can I use the bathroom really quick? Which I would never use the bathroom at someone else's house like that. But I thought, better me throw up in the bathroom than all over her table. And so I walk over to the bathroom, and then the next thing I know, I'm on the floor. There's blood all over my face. And she's like standing over me, or no, I hear her on the phone saying, I think my therapist just passed out. I don't know what to do. Luckily, she had just called someone else. She didn't call 911 or anything, luckily. But I had fainted on my way to the bathroom, and I hit my head on the counter, like on my way down, I guess. And so it was not a good situation. She was so sweet about it. She's like the nicest, and she believes in all the holistic medicine. And so she had all of these things that she was doing to help me. She made me sit with my wrists under the water, and she was so sweet about it. But I felt mortified, because what a role reversal, you know? It was so embarrassing, and I didn't know what to do exactly, because I was like, am I breaking HIPAA if I call someone to come get me? Because yeah. And so we ended the session, obviously, and I just drove myself home, and it was such an experience. She got to know me in a way she never would have otherwise gotten to get to know me. But that is something I will never forget. It was probably the worst moment of therapy so far, just because I remember waking up and thinking like, oh no, like what am I on? Like that was my first thought, is like, what am I laying on right now?
Yes.
Not good stuff.
I think that going into people's homes, like you said, takes it to a whole nother level of you don't have control of that environment. You're not sure what's going to come up. So, well, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
We don't have
Yeah. So
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, go for it.
Okay, sorry. I think my internet got choppy for a minute, but I was going to say we don't have any more planned questions. Is there any last words of wisdom or anything you want to leave us with?
Yeah, my words of wisdom, especially, are all of you guys in your practicum right now?
I think Mara and I are close, and we're going to start soon. And then Rhonda left is already, she's getting close to graduation.
Okay, cool. So my words of wisdom, as you guys are approaching practicum or ending practicum or whatever, it is hard to get your hours for sure. I was talking about this today with Dr. Crane. I just remember, I think I started the spring semester with like 30 or 40 relational hours, and we needed 250. And I thought, there's no way that I'm going to be able to finish on time. And it was the first year the program was open, so we didn't have really, they didn't have it very well they didn't know what to do if we didn't finish on time yet. And we didn't have tons of other options for how to get hours. And I just remember feeling like there was absolutely no way. And somehow I did it. I finished by May. I saw 210 relational hours in that semester. And it worked. And so my advice is, it's only a year, it's only a semester, or however long, and you can do this. You can push to make it happen, and be confident in that. When you ask your clients to make it a relational hour, that was the hardest thing. Is I had 10,000 individual hours, not really, but it felt like it. And having to build the confidence to say, I really want your husband to come with you, or I really want your parents to be in here with you. And not only because I needed the relational hour, but because that's what's best, is having your community in there. And so really you can do it, and your clients love you, and they're going to do what you think is best for them. And if what you think is best is bring your husband or bring your wife or bring your mom or dad, then they're going to do it. And something that I have learned over the past couple of weeks, as I've had to say goodbye to a lot of my clients, is it's always felt like a one-sided relationship so much. And I think that can be lonely as a therapist too, is these people rely so much on you, and they share so much with you, and it's not a regular relationship where you do that back with them. But over the past couple of weeks, as I've been saying goodbye, every single one of my clients has been happy for me, and every single one has been so gracious to me, as like I was terrified that they were going to be mad at me for leaving or whatever. And so I think we forget how much of a relationship we build with these people, that we don't just care about them and want the best for them. They want the same for us. And that has been huge and so humbling, really. So I think as you're doing your practicum and you're terrified of, I don't want to ask them to bring this person because what if they don't want to come back or whatever. They do. Sorry, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened, but they do. They love you. And so I think that's important to remember for sure.
Thank you so much. I love that advice, and I haven't started quite yet, but I look forward to those relationships that will be built.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes it's hard too, building relationships like that. I always get really bummed when I get a client that I love so much, and I think like, man, they could have been my best friend, and now it's ruined because I'm their therapist, and now they can't be my best friend. But I think even that is good.
Mm-hmm. Well, we appreciate you so much taking this time with us here tonight. I know I took a full page of notes. I learned so much from you about private practice. We just appreciate you connecting back with your old program and the new generation that's coming up. We appreciate it. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. And if you guys have any, if you guys have any other questions, if you have any other questions that you think of later, email me. Like, I am happy to answer any questions that anybody has in the future. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that offer. And I know more people who couldn't make it here tonight will be watching this recording, and they, I'm sure, appreciate that offer as well, to reach out if they have any more questions.
Okay, great.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We hope you have a good rest of your night.
Thank you. You guys too. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
See ya.